Ladies and gentlemen, welcome at Pakhuis de Zwijger on this sunny 4th of July. My name is Maurice Saleki and I will be your moderator tonight. We're very pleased that we organize this program in collaboration with New Heroes, the artistic collective of Lucas de Man, the artistic director of New Heroes, and he's also our headliner here tonight. We have the 11th edition of Millennial Matters. Millennial Matters is our series of programs in Pakhuis de Zwijger where we discuss all kinds of topics from the perspective of the millennial generation. So we define the millennial generation as the people born between 1980 and the year 2000. And in the latest editions, the previous editions, we talked about all kinds of topics, the housing market, love, friendship, suicide, depression, but also politics and their look on the future. And tonight we're going to talk about the new multimedia art project Hello Asia of New Heroes. And its focus on millennial changemakers in megacities such as Hong Kong, Singapore, Shanghai, Taipei, Seoul, and Tokyo. The premiere of Hello Asia will also be here in Pakhuis de Zwijger in September. So we're very pleased that you are here also, because we're actually having a unique look behind the scenes of a work in progress. But before we start, first a quick scan of the audience. What we always ask at Millennial Matters, but is the following question: when are you born? Because we want to know how many of you are actually millennials. So my first question is, who is born in the 80s? Okay, nice. That's like 1/3 of the audience. And who is born in the 90s? Okay, that's like another third. And who is born in a different time, maybe in the 21st century? Somebody in the 21st century? Oh, you're from the 21st century? Okay. And maybe from the 70s? Yeah, the 70s. The 80s? Oh, sorry, the 60s? Maybe, yeah. And the 50s? Are the 50s still in the room? The 40s maybe also? Yeah. Okay, now that's interesting. So we are here with all kinds of people from all kinds of generations. That's very nice. Now we know who we are. We want to talk about Asia, and therefore we developed Asia quiz. We're gonna ask you some interesting interactive questions about Asia to test your knowledge about the continent. We want to ask you to go to www.menti.com and use the code 555-5477 so you can give your answer on the following questions. It's very interactive, so we can see how many people have the right answer and the wrong answer and all kinds of stuff. So are we there? So www.menti.com and use the code 555-5477. This is going to be great. Okay, let's start with the first question. Oh, are we there? You still see the code above. So the first question: how many millennials are there in China? Is that A, 100 million, B, 200 million, C, 300 million, or D, 400 million? Yeah, are we already? Everybody's there? Okay. The correct answer is D, 400 million. So 15 people got it right. 400 million millennials in China. Second question. What's the name of the Japanese emperor? Is it A, Akihito, B, Naruhito, or C, Hirohito? They are related, these names. Yeah, this is testing our knowledge, because Everybody is traveling to Asia all the time, but what do we know? The correct answer is C. Is the correct answer? Oh, sorry. No. The correct answer is A. Akihito. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was a strict question, a tough question. Okay, but there are like grandfather, grandson, and father. Okay, the third question. How many people are living in Taipei? Yeah, that's an interesting question, but we the Wikipedia Taipei that that Taipei. Yeah, so don't Google, but is it 10.5 million, 2.7 million, 6.4 million, or 4.9 million? The last the last data is from 2015, and the right answer is B, 2.7 million. Yeah, that's without New Taipei. So okay, thank you for the adjustment, Lucas. Next question. How big is Singapore, one of the smallest countries in the world? Is it 683 square kilometers? Is it 486 square kilometers? Or 1,231 square kilometers? Or 270 or 57 square kilometers? This is just testing. Yeah, okay. The right answer is A, 683 square kilometers. Next question. So we're just diving into the continent. But the next question is, who is Jack Ma? Is that A, an American-French cellist? B, a Chinese businessman and multi-billionaire? Or C, a Hong Kong-based martial arts movie star? Jack Ma. Yeah, we thought up these questions and our answers ourselves, but it could also be the American-French cellist. Huh? No, but the right answer is, of course, B, a Chinese businessman and multi-billionaire. The first one would be Yo-Yo Ma. So that's, yeah, and the third one doesn't really exist, but yeah. Which of the following brands, the next question, which of the following brands is not Korean? Is it A, Samsung, B, LG, C, Hyundai, or D, Huawei? Okay, you're so it's actually answer D. So that's Huawei. That's a Chinese brand. 7. This is for the literary fans of you. What's the title of the debut novel of Japanese writer Haruki Murakami? Is that A, Hear the Wind Sing, B, Norwegian Wood, C, Dance, 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 or D, Hard Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World? Martin Bill, you are the Murakami fan, right? Norwegian Wood. I think that's a novel uh, we actually read from Haruki Murakami. It's his most famous novel, but in the West, Hear the Wind Sing is actually the correct answer. That's his debut. And the last question of this quick introduction to Asia. What's the biggest city of China? Is it A, Beijing, B, Shanghai, C, Hong Kong, or D, Guangzhou? Yeah, the right answer is B, Shanghai, with 23.4 million people, and they expect that Shanghai will having 25 million people, and that's the limit also from the city municipality. Okay, thank you so much for joining us in this quiz. This is just the first introduction, but now I want to welcome our keynote speaker of tonight. And actually, maybe it's also good for you to know that we have a live stream going on, so everything what is said and done here in this room can be used against you afterwards. But this is just for our archive. And we also have a hashtag, of course, Millennial Matters. Use it for the internet. And after these messages, I want to welcome our keynote speaker of tonight. He's the Homo Universalis of the Millennial generation. Active as theater maker, television host, artistic director, moderator, lover, not a fighter, and creative concept developer. Raised in Belgium, living in Amsterdam, and working all around the globe. Give it up for the one and only Lucas de Man. Woohoo! Yeah. Lucas, when have you got? When were you? When?
Last week.
Last week. Okay. Thank you so much. Lucas, probably lots of people here in the room know you, but there are also a couple of people maybe that don't know you.
Yeah.
And we want to know also a couple of things that we don't know yet about you. So maybe you can tell us about your youth.
Oh my god.
So can you
Staat deze aan? Nee. Check. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Can you tell us something about your past? Where do you grow up, and how did your family look like? Can you tell us about the little Lucas, Lucas Matthias.
I grew up in West Flanders. It's in Belgium. It's the coast area. I moved 17 times when I was young, but I grew up most of my life in Roeselare. It used to be the city with no unemployment. That was the whole thing. Because everybody was running a business. That's in West Flanders. Very important. You have your own business.
Entrepreneurs.
Now it's the Coke city, so there's a lot of coke.
Cocaine?
Cocaine, yeah. But that was after I left. I don't know if there's a causal connection, but after I left. I was in a boys' school. My school was only boys.
Mm-hmm.
So that was
with the friars, or was it not the Catholic school?
Yeah, there was some priests, but it was not about the priest. It was more about, it was the boys' school, very good boys' school. And we stayed in school until 6:30. And I'm saying this because it's interesting for the people we've met in Asia, by the way, and how the school system can be very rigid and controlling your life, which is still a lot happening in Asian countries, and people are fighting against it. But I loved it. I loved it that in West Flanders we had school from 8 in the morning till 6:30 in the evening. It's only boys. We also had a girls' school, so that was interesting. And the girls' school even had uniforms still, West Flanders. And the great thing is, we could do whatever we want. You know, we could do so many things because we made a presidium. That means like we had a board of students and we had a president, and then you had, different departments, and we installed that president. We had our own newspaper we installed. We had a budget we installed. So we never went to the study from 5 till 7. We always had our own meetings. We had keys. So we run that school. And I love
were you the president also yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but the first year I did, and then I discovered it's better if someone else is president because he gets all the heat. And then we had the committee of decision making, so we were behind the president. So
you were the Kevin Spaceys in House of Cards.
Yes, we controlled, and they executed. And we had a newspaper, and we had DJs every Friday on school. The girls could come over on the Friday afternoon. So it was a blissful time. And my biggest moment in my career is that 1 month ago, I'm now asked to speak in my own college where I grew up in Roeselare in November. For all
as a keynote speaker
for
alumnus.
the students. Yeah, that's for me like the highlight of my career.
Oh wow! Hey, and Lucas, when did you knew for yourself that you wanted to work in the creative sector, in the arts?
I think already very, very, very young. I was 5. I could not read or write when I wanted to do theater and music classes, so I could not write my homework down, but I could memorize what I had to do. So I was an early child, and I always wanted to be on stage and doing performances and create. And when I was 15, I wrote a manifest called The Creator, that I wanted to be a creator. There's someone who, because I was in Italy, and there's creatore, someone who's creative. But for me, I thought it was a profession. You could be a creatore. So I thought, that's great. That's what I want to be. I want to be a creatore.
Do you still know this manifest by heart?
No, I found it back when I was 24, by the way. I thought I never knew I wrote it. I just found it back when I was 24, the manifest, or 26 even. But that I wrote there in that manifest that I was gonna start a company with 7 people working in an office, and then freelancers everywhere in the world, so that I could fly to everywhere and make projects in the world. But the 7, I was very particular, specific.
7, a holy number.
7 on the people in the office, making sure that everything was arranged. Somehow it was in my head, we need to have 7 people in an office doing all the financial stuff and organization, and then all the other people can travel around and do projects. And now I'm 36, so and that's what we're doing. But not, I mean, we're
So
still
that was
growing,
already the prototype, maybe in your head of your own company, New Heroes.
Yeah, but I didn't know that until I found it back, the manifest. It was not like from 15 on I kept doing this. It just when I, so many years later, 10 years later, I found it back. I was like, this is what I'm going to do now. Because I started the company when I was 26. So I started when I found it back, the manifesto.
Let's delve in a little bit between the because it's an amazing and remarkable story which you're telling us now, and the I think the manifest should be in a museum in both the Netherlands.
We don't know where it is. They asked. There was a TV crew who went to my mother to ask where it is, and she says, we don't know. So because they're cleaning my room, because of course they're like all parents, you know, children out, all the rooms become fitness studios or whatever they come, you know. So it's gone. Everything is gone. All my stuff is gone.
Back to your 20s, because you've studied literature and language at
Yeah.
Leuven University,
Yeah.
and then you also studied direction, theater direction in Amsterdam. What was the difference between Leuven and Amsterdam and those kind of educational systems?
Everything was different. I remember the first time I came into Amsterdam. First of all, I was with 5 people in a class, except for, I mean, there were 200 in Leuven, and now it was 5.
Yeah.
And then the teacher says, call me by my first name. I was like, hell no. You know, I'm not going to call you Marianne, you know, because that sounded so strange that you would call a teacher by first name. I mean, how can you then have a distance and then have a good working relationship? So I didn't want to do it for a year, and they really thought it was strange. So I said also miss and ma'am and things like that. And level of theory was very low, so I started to criticize the teacher. That was not done.
Mm-hmm.
So he made too many mistakes, and then I was put onto hip-hop dancing in the morning instead of theory.
But hip-hop is your favorite kind of music, right?
Yeah. I mean, and back then definitely, and then the dancing-wise, I really liked it. So instead of theory, I had to do hip-hop dancing, and the university is way more anonymous. You know, you're just there with friends, and for me, the whole having friends, reading a lot of books, I loved it, and doing a lot of improv theater, that was for me my student times. So touring every week, I mean more like 4 times a week, we went out playing improv somewhere in Holland or Belgium. So that was for me the most amazing time. And reading a lot of books and writing a lot of essays, because if you study literature and philosophy, you have to do a lot of essays. And I always knew I wanted to be a creator, but I wanted to do that when I was 18. And then my parents said, we don't give you money if you want to become a creator right now. But if you do university, then, and you still want to be the creator, we'll support you. So it was like a business deal with my parents, and I did. And they did as well.
So they paid up.
They paid for the studies, yeah. Not nothing else anymore, but for the studies, yeah.
The people are sometimes saying, you know, there's a difference between the cultural scene in Belgium, where everybody seems to know each other and everybody's friends with Tom Barman and and Felix van Groeningen.
Yeah.
And in the Netherlands, because it's we have a different perspective on culture. Do you recognize that saying?
Well, it's a culture shock if you come here. Even you think it's neighboring countries, but and I think a lot of people see the same because the language is quite similar. But for me, it was a cultural shock because it's not that obvious. If you go to Senegal to live there, you know it's going to be different. If you go to Korea, you know it's going to be different. If you go to Holland, somehow you don't think it's going to be that different, but it is. It's really, it really is.
And can you give us some examples of the difference?
I think the biggest difference is that in Belgium, before you're friends, it takes a while. So there's a distance, and when you're friends, you're friends. In Holland, it seems like you're friends immediately, but before you're real friends, it takes the same time as in Belgium. But there's this cold period in between, and the beginning is very friendly, then there's coldness, and then there's friendship. I like cold, then friendly, warmer, friends. I like that more. So I like the Belgian
more
way
honest,
of,
maybe.
I don't know if it's honest. I think Belgian people, I think we are many things, but not honest. We are Catholics. We are hypocrites. You know, yeah. That's what I like about the Dutch culture. Business, a deal is a deal. You know, if you do business, you do business. In Belgium, you go to dinner 3 times, you have a business, and then 2 weeks later, suddenly they change it again. So it's not that. It's like Africa of the European countries. Yeah.
Is that also the reason that you're still here in Amsterdam and not returned to Belgium?
I mean, I still live in Belgium as well. I'm going to my apartment again tonight. I mean, I have the 2 places, but yeah, in Holland there's more work, there's more money, and going back is always easier than going to somewhere. So I started my career in Holland because of the opportunities, but also because of the idea I can always go back, which I did. Every year we play in Belgium, and we're doing more and more and more. But also because, I don't know, we have now a whole network here, and the world is so small anyway. So for me, it's 2-hour drive from Ghent to, I'm going tonight, and you said, tonight to Ghent?
Yeah.
I was like,
Do you have a driver?
it's only 2 hours. I mean, it's like going in Beijing from one side to the other side, you know, with subway. So we never did less than 2 hours in Beijing anyway. So
let's talk about your work, because you've done all kinds of projects.
Yeah.
It's amazing if you see your portfolio. It's you don't know where to start. If you want to, if you want to research your work, but let's start with Oog. That's a project you started in Den Bosch, in the south of the Netherlands. Can you explain to the people here about what's Oog? And we have also
this one, yes. I was the city artist of Den Bosch. So Den Bosch, for people who don't know it, is a beautiful city, 150,000 people in 1 hour drive from here, and it's like a Beijing taxi ride. And they asked me to be the city artist for 4 years, and I did that. And one of the projects we did was Oog, so we have 5 eyes that we hang on buildings. People can sit in a chair, they are pushed out of the building, and they hang in the eye looking at the world. And then the eye can close, and then we beam on the inside of the eye a whole animation story about the necessity of people to be seen. Because I believe that it's very important for people to have the feeling, I am seen. People see me, not everybody, but people see me not only for how strong and amazing I am, Instagram, Facebook, but also for my vulnerability, my questions, my looking. And if you don't have the feeling you're seen, you don't exist. And I think a lot of people live a life of work and play and Instagram and everything, but they don't have the feeling I exist. Especially millennials really are looking for who sees me in a world where nobody looks at other people except for themselves. I is about that. It's about making sure that you feel seen. We did this in Den Bosch together with the Zuidelijk Toneel, is also the partner of Hello Asia project. And with a lot of, I think more than 40 non-cultural partners in Den Bosch. So I was very proud. 1/3 of the money came from culture and the rest from different parts. And they were in Tilburg, they were in Mechelen. And from Friday, we're going to hang one of these babies on Alap, which is on the other side of the river. And then half of August, it's going to open. And then in September, it's coming here. So it's going to be outside of this building till the beginning of November. So the idea is that people can hang outside of the building in the eye and checking out the world that they see, but also that they cannot see, which is inside themselves.
I have a question about the eye, because could it also have been, did you consider also to make it an ear? Because people can also be heard, and maybe, was it also a possibility for you?
Yeah, but to sit in an ear is like to sit behind an eye is more metaphorical, because you're literally looking. An ear could also be possible. In Korea, we interviewed an architect who made an ear that is outside of the mayor house, and then you can speak into the ear your problems, and the people who are working for the mayor's office are listening to your problems. So I also like that installation, but somehow an ear is too passive.
Yeah,
for me.
is beautiful, and this is a mock-up of the installation here.
Yeah, we're gonna hang it
in
here
September.
also.
Yeah.
End of September. Yeah.
You've also done a totally different project, or a related project, but a different project in search of Europe.
Yeah.
You traveled through Europe.
Yeah.
Looking for what?
Inspiration, creativity, the feeling that I'm not alone. That was actually my main goal. I was working a lot. I'm always working a lot, but I was working a lot and it was going very well. So I started to feel like I had to repeat this, and I don't want to have that feeling. So I asked people of my board of my company, can I go on travels and with a film crew, and can we take some of the money that we earn to do a new project? And they said yes, go, but make sure that the people you meet are people you think, oh my God, I really want to meet them. And I wanted to meet people of my generation, but people who are doing something that is inspirational, a project. So we did some research. Now, finally, we found some partners, also Pakhuis de Zwijger back then, because they were, the Holland was capital of Europe back then. And the great thing was, we had no idea. We just started, and Kimberly was there.
Your project leader at New Era?
She did the whole research. And we just found people. We had no idea. I mean, they were on the internet, they looked cool or not. Half of them never replied on our emails, but we just said, let's go. And we had 1 month to go to 8 countries, 25 cities, 17 cities, and then we interviewed. And everywhere we came, somehow we met the people we wanted to meet. Even though they didn't reply already for a month, somehow we arrived. We had students to help us with the language, and they said, oh, but maybe we can find blah, blah, blah. And then somehow we always managed to speak to them. And those were people, I call them changemakers, or people who have ideas and act upon those ideas. Not just talking, but also doing projects. So we just filmed it. We had no idea, we had no plans or whatever. Then we made a sort of lecture performance. So a performance in which we use all these interviews to do a sort of interview with the public and the people we've met. And we did a documentary for Tegenlicht, which is a TV show here.
Of the VPRO.
Of the VPRO. And somehow it worked, because now a few years later we're still doing the show. We made it in 2015. We did it around 130 times in 10 different countries, and we're still doing it. So yeah, that was really cool.
What's driving you? Why are you doing this?
Because otherwise it's dead or dying.
Yeah, no, but also your creative manifest when you were 15. What was the reason that you wanted to be a creator?
I don't know. It's just what you feel already since I was 5. That for me, there was an option: either you do this or you die. I'm not going to do the whole doubting, sitting in an office. Is this my right job or not? No, maybe I'm going to work for another boss. I mean, I don't mind people who do that, but for me, it was I would kill myself, because it's not, life is boring as hell as it is, and people just follow life because they don't know, and they're insecure, and they know that they're insecure, but at the same time, blah 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 blah, and And for me, I said, I cannot do that. When I was 12, I was like, I'm not going to do the whole path of trying to find out who you are and then sort of half failing, half succeeding, or trying to be the best and make a lot of money. It was way too shallow. So I said to myself, either I stop life or I try to create something. I don't want to be the best. I don't care if I am the best director, if I win prizes or not. I want to create and that people see what I do. That's the only thing that I provoke, evoke, voke things with what I do. So if it doesn't do anything anymore, then I should stop. But as long as it does something, and it doesn't have to do anything in the theater scene, or I'm not on the list of most happening people at the I don't care, For me, the most important thing is that I'm free, and freedom means hard work, and hard work means working very hard to remain free. So I have a business model together with my whole team that we can stop within 3 months the whole company. I have a deal that everybody's freelance, so that we all free.
So you're
the
lean
whole
and
time.
mean, agile.
Yeah, but not because it's hip, because
No.
I want to be free.
No.
If I want to go to Asia and I don't have all the money yet, I go to Asia because I want it. I want to do this. And then the whole why behind, I don't know, and I don't care. That's for other people. But for me, it's this or dying. There's no in between. There's no let's take it easy, Lucas, or now start a life with a family and a child, and every Sunday you go to the boom. No.
Let's talk about a wife and a child, because you've made Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the latest update is on that in that level. I understand that you have. And no. Let's
Let's not. Yeah.
let's not. But let's talk about your project, the Man is Lam,
Yeah.
because that's very interesting. You have like a last name. It's
Lucas de Man.
yeah, de Man. It's sort of a speaking name. I find that it sounds strong and vulnerable at the same time, because
Yeah.
it looks like you carry the burden of all manhood on
Yeah.
your shoulders. Lucas de Man.
Yeah.
So you actually made a project
Yeah.
about manhood,
Masculinity. Yeah.
masculinity. What's up? Tell us all about it.
No, actually, it was before the Me Too. Before the Me Too. Look, if your name is Lucas de Man and you're young, somehow masculinity and or gender immediately comes up, because that's your name, de Man. And I dragged it all my life with me, and I wanted to do a long time something about masculinity, but I didn't somehow. Then I was asked by Zuidplein. Doru was still alive back then.
Zuidplein in the theater in
Rotterdam.
Yeah.
And they do more theater for minority groups. That's what they say. And Doru was the director back then. She was still alive. She said, "Lucas, we want to have professional makers in who do something with our audience." I was like, okay, but I'm not going to do a sort of social project because I don't like that. It's racism, But I said I do like the idea of your teams that you have. She said Muslim men. I was like, what is with Muslim men? She said, yeah, there's a whole problem with the fact that, people are afraid. It was the whole, remember in Germany that there was a Christmas market and people were touched, and the whole exotism of men. And that's what I liked. I said, okay, because I can relate to the fact of it's difficult to be man in these times because it's changing. I said, look, let's do something about the millennial generation and masculinity. But I want to do it with other artists. So I asked Ahmed Polat, who's a famous photographer, and Rachid Al-Kaoui, who's a word artist and a radio maker. Please work
most
with
beautiful voice of Belgium.
His voice is amazing.
Yeah.
You listen to it, and I got 3 orgasms the first time I heard him ever. And we worked together with Zuid Toneel again, and the New Heroes and Zuidplein, the 3 groups together, and we had we still actually have an amazing project because Ahmed made a whole series of beautiful photos, videos, slow motion, and he made an exhibition of it, which is touring the world. So it was just in Boston, it's coming to Europe, and it was in Turkey, where Rachid is making a podcast for the VPRO every month, one for Nooit meer slapen, and I made a show that is a combination of video, radio, and show, and with some spoken word artists, we made a sort of easy to put everywhere show that is way more about how you feel, and people from different ethnicities talking about manhood. And those 4 projects are still playing in different parts of the world, actually, and then Holland and Belgium is most, and we cause a lot of discussion, good and bad, which is exactly what you want. So not page 13 reviews. We got 3 stars and 4-star reviews. Yay! Who fucking cares? But we got on page 5, 2 pages in different papers about masculinity. What does it mean? We got radio shows.
What is the most remarkable response you've read or heard?
We got feminists saying, why do you do a show about masculinity in these times? It should be about women and not about men. And then I say, come to my show, because we say if we want to have real emancipation, we need men to be emancipated as well. Because if the women only do it alone, then nothing changes.
It's 50-50.
Yeah, it's actually, look, I don't believe in gender as the division is now strong because people are afraid, and it's an identity thing. That's the same why we went to Asia. It's identity. So the more people are afraid of their identity, the more they're going to do we versus the rest, city versus countryside, old versus young, we versus everyone who's a different color, women versus men. 15 years ago, there was less women versus men than now. Why? Because people are afraid, so we use it again. So of course I'm gender fluid. I understand that. The show is not about gender. The show is about men, which is different. We don't talk that much about women or trans or gay or LGBTQAI++. We talk about men, and that's game, and it's all kind of men. And what I like about the show, it's about weakness, it's about strength, it's about all different kinds together. So we got a lot of men who really like the show, and women, young people really like it. And then the older men go like, why? Why would you talk about masculinity, You're a man. And then I said, that's exactly why. because you don't see the problem, you know. And we had like 4 theaters who booked us extra because they liked it. We also had 2 theaters who put us off the bill because they don't want us to talk about masculinity. Very interesting. I love that, because then at least you're provoking something. It would be terrible if people say, like it, leuk, your show is leuk, you know. So,
Lucas, would you have been a totally different person and have done your lived your whole life in a totally different way if you weren't a man but a woman?
probably, I don't know. If I would have different kind of sex, probably, and I would I don't know. I would have probably different prejudices and against me, and I would have different fights I have to fight, but also things would be easier. I mean, I don't know. First of all,
Because
cannot
you're
know-
a philosopher, so that this is the reason why I dare to ask you something like this. Because
I think
you
if
have
I was black,
thought about it.
Yes, of course. If I would been born in Roeselare as a woman back then, and I wanted to have the same career, it would be more difficult. Yes. If I would be born with different color, yes, of course. I definitely believe that you start with a minus in this society if you're not a highly educated, whatever. From a family, my family was middle class. You know, my father and mother studied. Yes, of course.
You grew up in a house full of books. I remember.
Yes, yeah, a lot of books. My grandfather had 6,000 books, so yes.
Yeah.
But and my parents were not rich, so I'm not privileged in the rich sense, but privileged in the knowledge sense. Yes. But at the same time, I'm not ashamed for the fact that I am me. But I think that we live in a time. That's why I do Hello Asia. That we have to be curious about everything that is around us, and it's not about color or about ethnicity per se. It's about everything that is not me, which means I'm a West Flemish guy in Holland. Means everything is not me. So that's already interesting.
Because actually we could talk the whole night and the night after this about you and why you do everything, and another time we're gonna do that. But let's talk about the future of Lucas de Man, and not about Hello Asia, because we're gonna talk about it after this last question. But where will you be in 5 years when you'll be a man? Now you're 41 then. What
I will be 41.
where will you be?
5 years. En het is nu 2018.
Will you be the new Ivo van Hoven?
Nee. Fuck Ivo van Hoven. Look, no. I was 3 years the assistant of Ivo van Hoven, and I like him. He said, don't be me, because I'm already me, you know. Just don't try to be the new me. Try to be you. So, I mean, I love Ivo, but I would never be him, by the way. First of all, you don't want to be Ivo. And second of all, why would I be him if I'm already me? It's a lot of work already. So, in 5 years, I'm traveling more. For projects, I hope. Actually, I hope everything we have now, but then even more internationally.
I think that's a interesting point to delve into the next phase of this conversation, and that's the conversation about your project Hello
Yes.
Asia. Before we're gonna invite a second guest here, we're gonna watch the trailer of Hello Asia.
It's some material, eh? Oh, the trailer.
Yeah, the trailer. Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
the
a trailer
teaser,
in Dutch, where you talk about the project.
Hi, my name is Lucas. Hi, my name is Lucas. I'm a Belgian artist working from Amsterdam.
Hey, I'm Henshin, and I'm a German artist working in Berlin.
We do many different things. For example, I'm a director, she's a choreographer, but you could also say we are storytellers and we are change makers.
And in our work, we're dealing with issues of today, especially living together in a global world.
And this is the first time that we two are going to work together on a project, because we are facing a challenge. Everybody's saying, if you really want to do something now, you have to go to Asia. Asia's upcoming. Asia is dealing with the global issues of today. And we're like, cool. But to be very honest, a German and a Belgian, we have no idea what's happening in Asia.
That's why we're doing this project called Hello Asia, and we're gonna go together with an amazing team,
Film crew.
exactly, and do a documentary web series there.
Yes. We're going to travel to different cities in Asia. For example, Singapore. We're going to go. Shanghai.
Tokyo,
Hong Kong.
Beijing, Seoul,
I think that's it. And
Taipei.
We're going to go to all these cities looking for our peers. Who are the change makers there? And what issues are they facing?
If you know any change makers, or if you are a change maker, please get in touch with us.
Please let us know on our website here.
And we see you there.
And we see you there. Good. Tap up. Damn. Boom.
Hello Asia. When did you make this?
I don't know, Joep. Yeah, we had to had a sort of a call for the change makers because we're starting our research and we wanted to have like a video to do this. But
Yeah. Okay. We're going to talk about the video and the film process also with Joep van Osch. He's a film director and documentary maker, and he's your collaborator in this project. Joep, big applause for Joep van Osch. Please join us on the stage.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, you just came back from Asia. What have you learned?
This is on, yeah. I think the biggest thing that I was in my mind already after the first trip that there's so many, maybe sound like cliche, but so many things are like the same as we have here, but they seem more intense in a way, like stuff like people looking for, there's no space, like in Hong Kong there's no space to live. We also think we have that in Amsterdam, but there it's a little bit more so. So that's just one example of stories that we found that we thought were typical for millennials also here, but there it's more pressing, more intense. So yeah, a lot of recognition, but
So it's
times
like
10.
It's maybe like a pressure cooker. Lucas, is that also something you've experienced?
what is interesting, so we went to 6 cities in 6 weeks. So not Shanghai because we got no license. So we went to Shenzhen because everything is possible in Shenzhen. So we just got in. And what we notice is actually they have the same issues as millennial here, with the pressure, with the change of the economic situation, with the fact that economic boom is not everything anymore, the fact that housing and everything. But they also have to do the fighting against the generation above them, like our parents had to do. So you have 2 fights at the same time, which makes it very intense. So first of all, you have the whole system of you have to be very successful, you have to listen to your parents, your 1 or 2 children, general.
One
yeah,
child
one
rule
or
in
but
China.
even in Korea and other cities, 1 or 2 children. You have to obey your parents. They tell you mostly to marry when before you're 30, to be having your own house, your own car, and be successful. You have to listen to your teachers in school. They don't learn you how to think for yourself. All that. That's the system. The older people just tell you what to do. And at the same time, you know it's not that way anymore. So you want to revolt against those people on love, sex, what is success, all these things. So it's a fighting against the generation together with all the challenges that we have as millennials, which is all the global problems we have to deal with, and the fact that you're still trying to find a way to make it. And then there's a difference between countries already have economical crisis, like Japan. There, almost a lot of people we met are just negative about the future.
Mhm.
And you have countries like China where the economic growth is still going on in the big cities, and they are more positive. But the fight and the stress and the issues are the same.
You have also filmed a lot, because maybe you can, Joep, tell us about how we have to see the project when it's premiering in September. How will it look like?
Yeah, it's basically a lot of this guy over here and Yunsin, the lady you just saw. They're like the guides through all the people we meet. So they take us through these 6 cities that we visited. And there are parts documentary / documentary meetings. Actually, they meet a lot of millennials, inspiring people. But we also have like city shots, and so it's kind of a visual journey through this generation and through these 6 cities.
Okay,
but
we have some visual stuff here.
Yeah,
also
we can, because we just came back, I think 10 days ago.
Mhm.
So yesterday and today we put together just a really quick view to just show something of the project, but we're still gonna edit it this summer. We're gonna make the first episode. So I think that's good to get a sneak peek.
Yeah. So this is also a scoop, right? So nobody
sure,
else.
yeah.
I
seen
never
this
Yeah.
saw
yet.
it. I
Yeah.
never saw it.
Oh, we can sit in the sitzak here.
Yeah.
We sit in the sitzak.
And just to explain a little bit the first thing, because there's
In the
already
Maybe
microphone.
you can
in the
talk on the
microphone.
microphone.
1 minute. There are like 1 minute clips of several cities that we visited, and the first one was we filmed at actually in Hong Kong, which was I think the most crowded city we were. We made a scene at a cemetery, which of course was also crowded, just like the city.
It's with our drone.
You can just talk as a sort of voice-over.
Well, actually, look, the Chinese culture is that you have to be buried with your, ideally with your back to the mountains and with your face to the sea. So everything you see now are all graves, and the idea is
I
that
think
you
everyone
stay
knows
there.
that Hong Kong, the housing
Yes,
is a disaster.
Who's this?
So it's really expensive.
he's
There's no
a
place
he's a
to live.
designer.
And no place to die now. Yeah, obviously. So normally people have to wait for like 4 or 5 years if they want to get that little place for the urns. Yeah.
And he's a designer, and he's designing
How many
actually
people die in a
tools to
year
make
in
sure
Hong
that
Kong?
people
40,000
can
to
be
50,000.
buried,
Yeah.
because you
40,000
cannot
people
bury them
die
anymore.
Yeah,
every year.
Every year.
But
So
also
even there's no
urns,
places
you
now
cannot
for the urns also.
Yeah.
Voilà.
We have no place for the graves, no place for the urns. So
Yeah,
what do
no
you do then?
place to live, no place to die in Hong Kong. Yeah.
So the idea is that you cannot put people there anymore in the graves, but also the urns are full. So you have no place for the urns anymore. So now they want to make sure that people are burned, and then you throw the ashes on grass fields or on the sea. But the problem is that's against belief and culture and especially tradition. So the designers are designing beautiful products so that people still have a ritual of scattering the ashes over the new pieces of land. But it's very difficult. So they have old people convincing the generation of, like to say, 40s and 30s to think different about death, because there's no place if you die. And now in Hong Kong, they even have the problem that sometimes people are laying for weeks in their home because there's no place for the body to go. So you have a body still in your house because there's no place. You know, where are you going to put them? If you want to have rituals and traditions and an urn, and all the urn facilities are full. So they're building apartment buildings, really apartment buildings, to put the urns in. But the construction is behind the death. So people die too massively to put them away.
Wow. Amazing.
And actually, we're probably also going to have this in Europe if you don't watch out. So no
When-
place for death.
Yeah.
And the Greeks said you have a crisis when you have no place for your death. Then your country is in crisis. When you cannot mock the leaders,
Yeah.
well, we are there already. And when you have no places for the dead people. So I really like this bit that, I mean, first of all, it's amazing to see 36,000 graves on a mountain, but also the idea that you have no place for the living, no place for the dead. I really like that sentence.
It's literary. It's almost like
it's also
a
nice.
film scene. Yeah.
He's also using design to change things. So we talk to a lot of normal people, just millennials, but also a lot of people who are trying to do something. And it can be in arts, but it can be all kinds of things. And this guy, Albert, is using design to change something. That's really cool, I think.
Because death is a taboo. You cannot talk about death in Chinese culture. And they asked old women to talk about death to people on the street. That was amazing. People had T-shirts, I want to talk about death, wearing in Chinese. And other people were like, who are you, you know? And we had amazing old people of 70 years old talking about, I want to die and I want to be scattered around the sea.
Is it something that you only experienced in China, or is it also
No, everywhere.
noticeable in other countries you visit? Yeah.
In the big city, we went
Yeah.
to cities. We didn't
Yeah.
go to countries because then we have the Taiwan and Hong Kong problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went to cities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the cities you have this problem.
Let's watch the next fragment, Joep.
I have an honest question, so an honest answer. Who here is not afraid to fail?
This is at a school in Hong Kong, also a design school.
Not afraid to fail. Who says I don't mind failing? One. Okay, so to make sure that I know that you understood me, who is afraid to fail? Honest answers. Who is afraid to fail?
Who says there's a lot of pressure on the young people to make sure they become successful here? Do you have the feeling there's a lot of pressure? Yeah? I only see hands, okay. Is there someone who can tell me about the pressure? Why is it so high? Why do you feel so much pressure? Very good. Thank you already for not being applause. Very good.
Yeah, the question is why there pressure on the young people's shoulder, because of our society. Chinese is like a high contact society that parents always use negative language to teach their children. So
Negative language? How do you mean?
Like they won't saying like I love you and you're doing great. Try to do it for me. They're more like going to say you're not perfect. You have to got 100% on this task. Otherwise, you're just like nothing at all. Some of the parents said you are not good enough because I got 100 marks when I was a kid, and now you only got 85. I'm better than you. That's why we are having a huge pressure on my shoulder, and we force ourselves to be better.
Is there something that would be one compliment you would have liked to hear when you grew up?
Yes, I would like to hear like, can you do it for me? And I'm really proud of you.
Yeah. So
Did nobody tell you I'm proud of you?
No. No.
Will you say to your child, I'm proud of you?
Yeah, sure. Because when you say this in English, it will be more easy. But when you say I love you in Cantonese, it would be like so weird.
Why is it so strange to say I love you in Cantonese Chinese? Why?
Because of the traditional because of the society, Chinese society, father won't say I love you to the kids, especially the father, because of the concept of the traditional. But when it comes to mom is more like gentle and more warm to the kids, but they won't say that openly as well. When it comes to English, the people who receive Western culture are more easy to say I love you, like can I give you a hug or something.
Yeah, you want to say something, right?
Well, you didn't show the other hand thing. I also asked this was a class that we didn't talk about this topic. We were just talking about, they were social designers, so they all had to present their social design project. And I asked to them, who here has a feeling that they're not good enough? And they all rose their hand. And that was for me, it's like, whoa, you know? It's the idea in a lot of Asian culture, and also, by the way,
In
here,
Europe, because
but okay, is the
even at high school children in
Yes.
the Netherlands.
So the suicide rate in the high school children in the Netherlands is doubled almost the last few years because of the idea I have to be the best, but you don't know what the best is. And of course it's different. The parents here give a lot of hugs and they say I love you all the time, but it's not only that, it's the idea of I have to be successful. This girl had a project about a calendar where the parents gave compliments to their children, and that was on the calendar. So today, say to your children something nice.
That was like a schedule.
Yes, a schedule just to make sure that once a month, not too much, once a month the child got a compliment from their parents. That was her project, you know. And for me, it really hit us. And it was in the beginning of the first travel that was in Hong Kong, this one. And then we heard all the time in Korea, in Singapore, everywhere, the idea of I have to be successful. I don't have to think too much for myself. My parents will think I'm a failure. My family will think I'm a failure. So the idea of the micro community of a family and making sure you don't give blame to your family, you do good to your family is so much in the Asian culture. And there's a generation, that's the millennial generation, fighting against it. But not too much, because they don't want to destroy the family too much, but fighting against it. And there's a lot of suicide and stress. Here in the West, we have a lot of suicide and stress because we miss family. So it's very interesting. So no community feeling at all. The fact that you have to do it alone and be successful by yourself gives a lot of stress and suicide. The feeling that you have to be successful for your family gives a lot of stress and suicide. So somewhere we had the idea of, can the individualism or the self-development
from Western world is being now within the millennial generation in Asia, so they know this and they are striving for it, and we miss the community feeling or the family feeling that we once had and lost. And we both commit suicide a lot. We both have stress because we feel like we have to do it on our own.
Have you considered, because we did the test about Asia, of course, on purpose, just to test some basic, just some facts about the continent. But do you think that we know in the West enough about Asia and their culture?
We know shit about Asia. Look, the reason why I would do this project is because I have family living in Shanghai, so I went a lot to Shanghai, and then I went to Korea and Japan, and just for myself. And every time I was there, I was talking English. I noticed how many people speak English, how there's a global millennial world, and how in Europe, first of all, we think that we are amazing because we have human rights, we have democracy, and we are changing the world for the better. And the Asians do our technology. They have a problem with human rights. They all eat dog and they all look alike. It's still very cliche, and it didn't change much since the 50s. And somehow I'm like, first of all, how come? Second of all, if we really want to face the problems that we're facing, we have to work together. We have to learn to know our generation. It's not going to come from America, So we know more about Trump's farts than we know who the president of China is.
Who is the president of China?
Xi Jinping. So when he was...
Shall we, because we also have sort of an international live stream going on over there. We can sit on the couch, but I'm
sorry.
Yeah, sorry for
People
our international friends. You were talking about how we can share more of our experiences and work together with Asia more.
Well, I don't think, first of all, there's no Europe and Asia as a country. That's the whole... Hello Asia is irony, like Hello Kitty, right? Yeah. So I'm going to make a... Yeah, I think it's interesting that Joep is going to make a 6-episode series. And that's not going to be finished in September because we're still looking for money. But we're going to make 1 episode. But we have a 6, and and I'm going to make a show with the Zuidelijk Toneel together. That's going to be here and then hopefully touring. And the show will be about our tour, but also about our insights that we got. My idea is, my subconscious level is that we have to know each other if we want to work together. That's one thing. The other thing is that we know so little. And what I really like is that we go to Asian countries and cities for inspiration on matters that we think as Europeans we are the best in. That's what I love. We think we are the best in human rights. We think we are the best in ecology. We think we're the best in education. We think we're the best in so many things. And what I like is we went for all these topics to these cities and meet young Asian people who are dealing with it in a way more, sometimes, way more passionate way than I see here. So I really like the idea that I'm going to tell a story that if Europeans watch or Asian watch, they both have the feeling, it's about us. That is what I would love. And it gives inspiration. Because we are facing a way bigger problem. I'm sorry, because now we talk about the depression thing, but I think we have to see more episodes because we also had a lot of great projects, but there's a danger coming.
Which danger?
It's the new human.
Which new human?
Maar heb jij daar een dingetje van of niet? Oké, maar niet...
you mean cyborgs or something?
Yeah. Maybe we should... Is it after this one or do you first have another one?
No, it's after this one.
Yeah, can we check the film first?
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
I can explain who you see here. And then we have to go to this.
Won't say I love
more.
you.
That's the guy. So he's a scientist.
34 years old.
And he cloned himself.
Almost. What would you really like to discover? There's the Nobel Prize, biggest prize in the world.
Yeah.
They will give you the prize for what?
Okay, here's the thing. I read something. It's I want to make a human to a new area. It's just the image. So the first area of the human is we were from the monkey. We stand up, we rise up, free our hands. It's just like Lucy in Africa. The first monkey could stand up. That's the beginning of a human. But today, we understand our DNA and we can change it. We can make it. It's a new area for a human.
And
a new area.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. What will the human do then? Lucy stood up, right?
Yes.
What will the new human do?
the new human will do is. I have don't have work on that. What a human will do is. So it's like a human control its own destiny, not a nature control destiny. It's all human control our destiny.
And this guy is doing DNA research, and supposedly he wouldn't tell us what, but supposedly we will read about him in
February.
what is it, 8 months or something.
Science or nature.
Yeah, we tried to get the answer out of him what he discovered, but he discovered something, all right. But it was interesting. A lot of people in Shenzhen, especially in Shenzhen, were working on DNA, and there's so much corporations there pushing the limits, and I think way more than, or at least as much as in the US. There's so much going on there.
And we
And
asked him
do you
what
think that's the real danger? It isn't not,
No, it's not per se a
circularity or the sustainability issue in,
No.
for instance, China?
No. First of all, China is going way more green than any other country in the world. So I think we are more problematic with our waste. No, I think ecology is a big problem, but we will solve that. Our generation is going to solve that problem. But this is not only DNA. This is AI, DNA, algorithms. It's that's why I call it. It's a new human. It's a longing for people to live forever, to be the control. What he said, we control our destiny, not nature. Not nature who decides when we get Alzheimer, when we forget, when we die. We as people gonna decide when we die. We as people gonna clone ourselves, or the idea. We asked him what is possible already, because it's not that he does nothing with his 100 employees and he's 34 years old. He can already manipulate DNA so that he can decide the color of the eyes, the color of the hair, the length of people. He can already do that, you know. And he says the next thing is the brain. That's the whole race. When it was to the moon in the 60s, the race that you have now in DNA is who can control memory or the brain. And the Chinese
Upgrade all the brain functions.
upgrade brain, but also take your memory and before you die, put it in another vessel, like a robot or another person, so that you don't die. Your memories and what you learned live on. And it's a philosophy thing. It's a spiritual thing. That's what makes it so strong. And he also says, I'm doing science. People can decide the ethical part. I'm doing science. It's going to happen anyway. I'm trying to do it as well as possible. But people can decide what kind of babies they want, what they want to do with it. And so this is DNA. We also went to robot factories in Shenzhen. So robotics, you can do a lot. AI, you can do already a lot. And I'm not against it. We went in Japan to an elderly home where they use a lot of robots. So dance lesson is given by robots. They had 20 different robots helping the elderly. Love it, you know, because we're going to have a lot of problems with our elderly. So in robotics, there's a future. But somehow, in my mind, we were all also like, wow, our generation is only going to face ecology or ecologically or things like that. We're going to face ethics. And the generation above us is not busy with that. We are the ones, good or bad, who have to decide how we're going to control the first laws for all these things that we have now. The real first ethical laws is the generation that is now 20s and 30s. They're going to be the biggest part of it we're going to have to do. And so saving nature, right, is going to happen. People are working on it a lot. People in their 40s,
That's not
50s.
actually an ethical choice, but all the things and not the moral choice to save nature. Yeah. So, but Lucas and you, you've traveled the world. You've discovered all kinds of secrets and all kinds of new things. You've seen similarities, but also differences. But are you hopeful now? When you got back and when you see these images, are you hopeful for our generation? Are you hopeful for our generation, Lucas?
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do. Yeah, in the theater show, because Joep can do a lot of image, I have to do stories, and I cannot do 1,000 stories because then people, you know. So for me, there are 3 main stories. And they're all female, because I think the future is female. That is also what we notice. A lot of people met are intelligent young women, and their fight is even bigger than of their male counterpart, because they have to fight even more, you know, especially in Asia, especially in Japan, you know. So what we noticed is that you have the fight against the generation, the fight to be to develop yourself. So not to marry when your parents tell you, to choose who you marry, also
to choose who you sleep with, to choose if you want children or not, and if you want a career or not. That is one thing. The other thing is a generation that is doing a lot of amazing projects to help the current situation. So better nature, better living circumstances, a new economical system. I believe in that. And then the third character is what we just talked about. How are we going to deal with all the ethical questions? Because it's going to happen. What we can do from now and 10 years, amazing.
Joep, but do you consider that your role as a creative, a person, an artist is in this whole new future with new humans and all kinds of new developments?
What my role will be? Well, I was thinking about, it's a little bit different, but there's already technology that you can mimic voices. So you can, for example, Obama or Trump, you have recorded voice and you can use that to make him say something else. You can also do that with faces. So I was thinking about my job as a filmmaker will be totally different in 20 years when nothing is real or everything is real or everything is fake. So that's more my, as a director, I was thinking about that. That's going to change. But as regards to your first question about being positive, yes, I think it has more to do with us also. And I think there's a lot of positive people and negative people everywhere, also in Asia. And what struck me was that also, I think, like the economical situation is really important for a lot of people. We did a friends table, we called it, like a group discussion in each city we visited. So we invited like 6 to 8 young people and we just talked for 3 hours, or Lucas Hyunsen talked to them.
With camera or?
With camera, on
with
camera.
love, sex,
it's also going to be in the series a lot, because it's really, interesting conversation. But like in Japan, there was a lot of negativity also because the country is not doing well financially. And like in Shenzhen, in China, is
one of the biggest 10 cities.
More than 20 million people. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot of people there, and it's growing so big, and everyone's way more optimistic. Also, so it's not a coincidence, I guess. So it's. I think that also influences people a lot.
Thank you. We're gonna talk a lot further this evening, but thank you so much for your time now. And good luck with your project. We're going to watch it here in September in Pakhuis de Zwijger.
The week of 16 September, we're going to do our first tryouts in the grote zaal downstairs. And it will be a combination of real film, storytelling, and animation.
Okay, and so it's going to be a busy summer for you.
Yes.
Good luck with that.
We have no social life.
And Lucas Amam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next guest is an assistant professor in the Department of Anthropology at the University of Amsterdam. Her research interests include migration, cities, art worlds, artists, and cultural translation, and draw upon the ethnographic fieldwork conducted in Tokyo, New York City, and most recently Mumbai. An applause for Olga Saudi.
So I'm Olga Saudi, and I teach in the anthropology department at the University of Amsterdam, and not Asian studies. The UvA unfortunately doesn't have a Asian studies department, but we do have a minor in Asian studies, which is nice. So as he just introduced. My research has primarily been in Japan and mostly on Japanese artists. My PhD had been on these Japanese artists, young people who migrate to New York City, and trying to understand why a middle-class person would basically abandon a life in Japan and move to New York and try to become a successful artist without any money, without any knowledge of English, and so on, and how people try to reinvent themselves creatively and as migrants. And for the last several years, I've been doing research on art worlds in Mumbai. So also, again, on art and artists, and a bit on the art market. So I have to say that I prepared this with very little knowledge about the project. So it might be, I don't know, a bit teacherly. But I'm hoping that some of the things that I say might be inspiring for a discussion. So I'm kind of going to talk a bit about what the term Asia evokes for me, because that's really all I had was this title, Hello Asia, and what is that, and what that means for me as a teacher and as a scholar. And then maybe after that to talk a little bit about what kinds of themes I think might unite the experiences of young people in Europe or the Netherlands or the West and people in Asia, based on sort of what scholars are writing about, and well, this is one of the things I teach about at the UvA is youth cultures. Okay, so too many things. Right. So when I teach about Asia, I always begin with a map so people understand where it is. And of course, what we see is that it's a huge part of the world, and apparently more than half of the world's population lives there, and so on. And it begins at the edge of Europe and goes all the way to Japan and Indonesia. But when people kind of do a quiz and I ask them to sort of fill in all the countries, it's interesting. Actually, it's very, very hard to do. Most people get about half, maybe, of the countries. But what I want us to think about actually is about actually how little the map really tells us, right? I mean, and in a sense, Asia is very much an idea. And I think that's how we should think about it, because the borders of Asia are actually constantly changing. And the places, for instance, that you guys' project is talking about, I would say is primarily East Asia. So again, a very particular region, not South Asia or West Asia or Southeast Asia. So when we say the term Asia, you know, you're evoking a whole chain of ideas and images and assumptions and possibly agendas. And for me, it's very interesting to think about, why are we still invested in this idea of Asia? It does something for us, you know? So what is that? So historically speaking, what is that? Some of you may know this notion of Orientalism, studied it in school, that comes from Edward Said. So a very old idea from the 19th century that Asia was really the so-called Orient, or the East, so anything that was really east of Greece. So referring to what we would now describe as Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa, which was very, inspired a lot of creative production in Europe, right? So these kinds of paintings, for instance, of harems and snake charmers and girls and this kind of stuff, they were not accurate depictions, of course, but it really kind of produced this certain idea of the East, or the Asian, as exotic, as beautiful, as primitive, and effectively as Europe's past, right? We look to Asia in order to understand who we once were. So that's what it was. And then later, you have images more like this. And this also reflects a little bit my own American background, because some of these are more American stories. Like this film, The King and I, from the 50s, you may know about this so-called despotic king of Siam, the famous opera and story of Madame Butterfly, and the love story between this Japanese woman and a Western man, and for instance, this old Hollywood movie, Daughters of the Dragon. So again, you have the Asian, in particular here, the Asian female, as exotic, as dangerous, as hypersexualized, but also docile and so on, and highly aestheticized. And so think about how these images, I think, continue to sort of live in how we think about Asia. So that was my first point. Asia is really an idea and not a place. What I find really interesting about this project is that I think it's doing something else that you can see in sort of different ways in which Asia has been used as a heuristic device, which is to use the other, or the Asian, or it could be Japan or China or Korea or whatever, as a kind of mirror by which we can understand who we are, right? And I thought of these two cultural texts. One, a very old example from Montesquieu, so from 1721, I think, where he I don't know if any of you ever read it, but so you have this French writer who invents two Persian characters who come to France, and these two barbarians are observing the customs and the political systems of the French court, and basically kind of putting Europe's supposed progressiveness or modernity or enlightenment in a different kind of perspective. And this film, Lost in Translation, which you may have seen, it came out many, many years ago. I'm betraying my own age by putting it up here.
Millennial classic.
Huh?
This is a millennial classic.
Is it? I'm slightly too old to be a millennial. but here again, you have the what happens is that Tokyo in this case, right? It's portrayed as this kind of hyper-modern, it's our future this time, not our past, this hyper-modern, high-tech urban setting where you have these two Westerners, these Americans who are basically totally out of place. It's completely illegible to them. They don't understand it, but it's through sort of placing themselves in this utterly different or foreign setting, they can kind of start to understand themselves, right? So these were kind of, oops, two things that I was thinking about, right? So Asia as an idea, and how can we use this kind of sense of an other in order to better understand ourselves? And I think you might extend this to this idea of the millennial itself. So it's also a kind of label, and tend to think of it as a marker, but of course it's not a neutral marker. It's associated with all kinds of ideas about being narcissistic or lazy or self-centered or politically disengaged and so on, right? Technologically savvy. So to think about what does it mean for this term to be defined by the media or by the state or by older generations, as opposed to what kind of definition would emerge if younger people themselves, people part of this group themselves, were actually to define it. So I want to move on now to a few different issues that I think are kind of pertinent for our discussion today. And so one of the things I do at the UvA is I teach courses on transnational youth cultures. And I teach this in an interdisciplinary social science program. And it's an English language course, so we have a lot of students who are from different parts of Europe, and many Dutch students as well, and also a lot of American students from South Africa and different parts of the world. And these are kinds of the themes that tend to come up. I think some of them have already been mentioned, but they're also reflected in the kinds of projects that I see students doing here in Amsterdam as undergraduates and also master's students. One theme that I think is really interesting that's quite universal is this kind of double-sided image of young people that you find virtually everywhere in the world, right? So on the one hand, young people are seen in a very positive light. At the same time, they're often seen in a very negative light, right? On the one hand, young people are the future. They are the nation's future. They're our hope. They're what's yet to come. They're a source of innovation, of creativity, novelty, and so on. But at the same time, they're vulnerable. They're potentially dangerous because they are unformed and they could do anything. You have to kind of guide how they develop because they might rebel, they might change the status quo. So they are both problem and solution. And I think that's really interesting that you see that actually in many societies around the world. The second thing is about youth culture, so the kinds of cultural practices that are really defined by age and generation that people engage in in groups. And these tend to be highly oppositional, I think, in many places, in parts of Asia, but also here. They don't come out of nowhere. They're usually defining themselves against some idea of a mainstream, some idea of a dominant culture or parent culture that's seen as out of date or moribund or repressive or old-fashioned. So there's this oppositional, often anti-authoritarian aspect that's there as well. Another third thing that is a kind of very widespread issue, I think, has to do with precarity and precariousness. You've probably seen this term already in many places. So it's a term that's often very vaguely defined, but has been used increasingly, I think, since the 2008 economic recession began, just to refer to a sense of chronic instability in how we live, right? So it's based on this idea that somehow, once upon a time, maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we could plan for the future. We could rely on the fact that one day, as middle-class people or even working-class people could get good jobs, and those jobs would remain secure. You could save money, you could slowly move up, you could expect that your children's lives would be better than yours. You expect that you would have children, but this is no longer possible. So precariousness is being something that affects everyone, but especially the very young and also the very old, right? So the people who are most vulnerable in a society. And one response to precariousness in many places has been this celebration of being an entrepreneur, right? So this idea of being your own self-starter, being motivated. You know, if there is no social safety net, there is no institution, you're on your own, then, you know, reinvent yourself. But then that kind of puts the whole burden of success on the individual, right? So it's all down to you, whether or not you succeed. And that's kind of the dark side, I think, of this idea of precarity. Another one is new forms of solidarity and collective action. As you may know, one of these stereotypes of millennials is that they are highly politically disengaged, but others say that that's not the case. It's just that there is a distrust of formal political institutions, which is something a bit different also in places like the United States. So to think about how in many parts of the world there have been more and more forms of collective action or political protests that are led by young people, by students, for instance, the Hong Kong Umbrella Movement in 2014. But you might also think, for instance, of Occupy Wall Street, where these middle-class American students actually played a very big role, but also here in the Netherlands, I think. Finally, changing paths to adulthood. I think this is really important, and it's related to precariousness. So it's something that I have definitely seen in Japan, where I've done a lot of research, and there's also many other places. So the idea that the way of becoming an adult is really changing, as is the timeline for that, right? So you have this rubric of millennials, but actually in a place like Japan, you could be in your late 30s, you could be in your 40s and still be immature because you don't have a stable job, because you don't have a partner, or you're not married, or you're still living at home. What are the markers of adulthood? Is it about being able to pay your way? Is it about owning your own home? Is it about financial independence? Is it about having a family? I mean, these things are becoming increasingly inaccessible for people around the world. You might think about how in South Korea you have this discourse of the so-called sample generation you may have heard of, right? So young people who are having to give up 3 things. I think it's like children, marriage, and dating, and sometimes it's more, it's like 5 things. It's home ownership and dreams and wishes. So what does it mean to be a young person, or to even grow up in a society where the bar is getting higher and higher, or it's just getting harder and harder to achieve the things that, you know, possibly your parents or your grandparents took for granted. So I'll stop there, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Applause for Olga Sudi. Thank you, Olga. Yeah, actually, just one more question for you. Are you hopeful when you look at the millennial generation and all their perspectives?
Am I hopeful about what? For what?
Hopeful about the future of the millennial generation when I see your presentation.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit of anxiety.
Oh,
Actually.
anxiety.
I'm a little bit of a millennial myself still.
Okay.
A little bit, but,
yeah.
You stay a millennial, eh? That's the thing.
I feel very moved, actually. I mean, I work with millennials, I guess, because I'm mostly teaching university students, and I guess, I don't know, what it makes me think, actually, is that when I hear the ways in which some people are trying to think of new ways to become an adult and different ways of getting there, and possibly, for instance, questioning the connection between higher education and having a good life, or reinventing new ways of living with others to make it. I find it really inspiring, because I think, hey, I never even thought of that. So yeah, I actually hope that a lot of things will change, and I do feel quite hopeful.
Thank you so much. We're going to follow a class. Is it possible at the university with you?
Of course.
If you want to hear
anytime,
more? Yeah?
anytime,
Okay.
yes.
And to the anthropology department. Thank you, Olga Sudi. Yeah, and our last guests tonight are actually Asian millennials living in Amsterdam, willing to share their life experiences with us. Please give them a warm applause. Xiaokang Li, Joanne Lin, and Joju Qian. Yeah, come on. Hi guys. Let's take a seat. Yeah, so I'm actually directing the questions to each one of you, and you can just answer freely when you want. My first question is actually, what is it like to grow up as a millennial in Asia? Because you two are from China, and you're from Taiwan, the other China.
I like the way you.
Yeah, yeah. Big Brother is watching us. So, how is it? Let's start with you. To grow up as a millennial in China.
Wow.
It's a big question.
To be honest, this is really a big topic to compare, like East, West, Asia, and Europe, because we three, we come from Far East, a only small part of Asia. And we also think like India is somehow far away from us.
And it's also Asia, yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
But for myself, actually, I didn't prepare, so just come out of my mind. And when I see the last slides about like two side images of young people, then I think about myself. Actually, I will think there are like two me. One is the real me, and another is my role.
Can you explain it? So your role towards your parents or society?
I think mainly towards my parents, as this is a kind of a pressure from the generation above. And while we were talking about it when we sit down, before this event, somehow we feel like we are quite different from the generation above and generation afterwards. We witnessed a lot of change, the ideology and also the education system and also urbanization. There quite a lot changed in China. And talking about myself, me.
Because how old are you actually?
30.
30. Yeah.
Yeah. Because when I introduced to Sophie, that he put my title on the website like data analyst.
Yeah.
And also the profile photo from LinkedIn is kind of a boring Asian guy who deal with mathematics or numbers. But actually, I really change my picture to be a image more like a photographer, because I'm also a photographer. And in the past several years, I traveled to around 50 countries, and I really enjoy traveling and exploring the world, and talking with different people and see different lives. That's kind of me.
That's the real you.
Real
so
me.
You have the data you and the photographer you.
And the data me is somehow I think that I need to have a stable job, and somehow I need to arrange my marriage and future for my parents to satisfy them.
Is this something that you recognize? The double use?
I totally recognize that.
Yeah.
I also feel that there's me from China and there's me in the Netherlands.
How long are you here? Maybe a little bit more in the microphone.
I've been here for 10 years already. I came here in 2008 for the first time, and it was also my first time going to a foreign country, leaving China. So growing up, I always have the feeling that home is a very intangible concept. Of course, when I was in China, I feel at home, but there are a lot of things I don't feel at home with. For instance, like Shao Kang mentioned just now, the expectation of the family, the parents. My parents are both university educated. So since I was, even before primary school, I was expected to go to university. If I don't go to university, then
You would
my whole
disappoint
life-
your parents.
Not only that, but also I have a feeling that my whole life will be a failure. So it's a path I have to take, and then there's no alternative to that.
Were you both the only children of your parents?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
Like I think the two of us are both from an urban area, and if you are born in an urban area in China, you have to be most likely you are the only child. So my city has a population of 400 million.
400 million. You're from
400 million.
Shanghai.
No, not Shanghai, but a neighboring city
Okay.
to Shanghai. So before going to university in Beijing, I've never seen any family in my generation who has a sibling. It's only when I go to university and then I have classmates from rural areas in China, and they have siblings, and that was an eye-opener to me. Oh, it was possible. So in China, I definitely feel that part of me, being Chinese, but at the same time being not at home, being somehow an insider and an outsider at the same time. And then here I am in Amsterdam, foreigner. Apparently I speak some Dutch, but I prefer not to speak Dutch.
And a little bit more in the microphone, maybe. Whatever you speak.
Yeah, sure. Is it bad?
Yeah, it's better for the live stream. For
Okay.
everybody here, it's okay, but for the live stream.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, like, my appearance, it's also, like, immediately people perceive me as someone from the outside. So my experience is that no matter where I am, in China or outside of China, I feel that home is a very difficult concept to me. I don't know whether this resonates with my fellow two guests.
Shall we ask it? Is it resonating because you're from Taiwan, but you're already here from age 17, right, in the Netherlands?
No, I spent 3 years in Hong Kong and then now 3 years in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Well, what I feel is, but maybe also I'm in a slightly younger generation.
Your Generation Z?
That-
You're in the
that-
wrong program.
Well, I wish I don't qualify as a millennial, actually, that I'm only 17, but unfortunately, no. But I feel like I went to a girls' high school, and I did come from a rather traditional education background where we still have uniforms in high school, so up till when I was 17 years old. But I feel like the thing with Asia now is it's changing so fast. So a bit like what he said about, like, there's a role and there's a real identity that is shifting so fast that you see a lot of traditional roles that's still going on that just hasn't been changed. But in a way, like,
Roles like?
Yeah, like you still had to wear uniform when you were 17. While in America, I think you dress whatever you like when you're 7 already. But the thing is, people are getting more and more open about opinions and differences, because I did go through a time where at school, and I told my teacher, I want to really figure out why. Like, I love doing complex mathematics, which makes me really Asian stereotype.
Data you?
I love that. I don't do that anymore. Like, now I do creatives, but I used to love spending like a whole afternoon with my 2 A4 paper sheet just to figure out like a conclusion of a really complicated problem. But then my teacher was like, no, you have to go to a good university. Your mathematics is already really good. You will get a full score when you get your university exam. So you should spend time on studying geography or history, but I hated it. But that was the difference. Is everybody was telling me that you should do that so you can get a equally higher score to go to a university. And I just didn't want to do it. But then afterwards, my teacher and my parents, they start to listen to me a little bit, and they're like, okay, why is it? And then you try to make compromises or differences, or other way around, because maybe that's why I ended up in Hong Kong, so I didn't have to go through the Taiwanese education system. But this is the time that everything is slowly changing, and I think it's really beautiful, because the way I see it, in a way, I think Asians are slightly bit more open-minded in understanding why people want to do things differently.
More open-minded than in the past?
Than Western people sometimes. Because sometimes, we are curious and we want to change and we're growing, that we are observing different cultures, and maybe also because we don't know enough, that we'll be like, okay, I'll just shut up and listen and ask why. Well, on the other hand, because I was when I was an exchange student, I was actually in the Asia study course at UvA, and I observed this very interesting thing, because I was interviewed by a Dutch student who wanted to write a small essay about Asian people. So they interviewed me, and at the end she was so frustrated. And she was like, okay, I have this whole thesis conclusion already written, and I was just expecting that I will interview you, so I have a backup, so I can prove my point. But after I interview you, it doesn't work anymore. I have to rewrite a whole new conclusion. And she was so frustrated. And that's what I see a lot here. Like, people look at me and they ask me, you're not Asian. You can't be Asian. Why are you like this? Why are you like that?
Prejudiced, actually.
Yeah, and they keep asking me, you must have spent some time in America and some time in Europe. That must be why you're different. But that's not always true.
Thank you for this very interesting answer. Back to you, because you're here now for a while. How long, a year in Amsterdam?
A year.
Yeah, a year.
Yeah.
What is the most the biggest difference you see here between your own culture and the Western culture?
Well, I think I would say Amsterdam is quite different, even compared to.
It's also a unique place in the world.
Yeah, compared to other European cities, and I really enjoy living here, and I remember one time I was on the way to office, and I talked with my boss. She's a Canadian, and we talked about the city, and she told me that a word that somehow I would say perfectly describe the spirit of the city is Amsterdam is more liberal, and yes, it's all the ideas are welcomed and all the kind of people are welcomed. It's always explore the border of the people's mentally world, compared to Beijing and Shanghai, that I always feel that yes, that city of my country, but I'm a stranger or even a foreigner when I was in Beijing. I was there for 7 years. I did my bachelor in Beijing and also worked there for 3 years. But every day when I off my work, when I was waiting for the bus, I feel that I'm homeless.
Wow. Intangible concept of home, homeless, W.
In Beijing, actually, I have the same feeling. I think it was during lunch, I was talking to Xiaokeng as well. So in Beijing, I think it's the scale of the city that makes
too big.
It's too big and also too high. It's that scale that makes you feel anonymous and insignificant. So I was talking about my experience of commuting between my university and the place where I live. And I had to take the metro, go out of the metro and go into another metro. And then it was that moment of passing through a number of skyscrapers that I really had to look up into the sky to see the top of the building. And I felt how small I was and how insignificant I was in that city. And I felt like I'm an outsider here. I don't belong to the city. I think perhaps that's also what Shaokang felt there.
Wow, so the architecture and the scale of a city in a physical way has a psychological effect and emotional effect.
Yeah. So like after I came to the Netherlands, the first city where I landed, it was Leiden, and it's a very small, cute Dutch town. And then the buildings, especially in the residential area, they are like 2 stories, 3 stories, and you can easily see the top of the roof. And that kind of scale makes you feel that I can. Well,
you can relate to it. It's
people
more
can
human.
see me in this city.
They see me. That's an interesting bridge to another question, because Lucas was telling about his project, the eye seeing me. Yeah, that's very interesting. But he is also making this Hello Asia. Was creating this Hello Asia project. How do you look upon this project? Is it because it's like a Flemish artist coming to Asia, trying to tell all these stories, bringing that back to Europe? How do you consider this project? Is this a wise enterprise or maybe dangerous?
I mean, to be honest, I really like the project.
Why?
Because actually, I forgot who said that. It's actually I agree that we, or like or Chinese or East Asian people, know more about West than the West know about us. I've seen a lot of people, Western people, they like travel or live in Shanghai or Beijing, but they don't really sit down or go to the real part of China to talk with people, to see what happened in this city, in this country, but only observe the fun part of Asia.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And what I like about this project is I think Lucas is really putting a very, very open mind, because I also met him already before they left for Asia. And he said, yeah, I just want to sit down and talk to people, so that's all, without any more further expectation. But I think sometimes it's not completely like, I think Europeans do want to know more, but sometimes it's a bit hard, because when I was in university, there were a lot of Europeans in my school as well, and they often ask me like, why don't you guys talk? Are you guys just stupid? Because in class, when a teacher asks a question, like Europeans and Americans, they always raise their hands and they want to sit in the front row and they want to challenge the professor. But Asians, we just sit in the back and we're always typing. They don't even know if we're watching porn or we're doing schoolwork. And I said, well, it's not because we're stupid. Actually, a lot of time we know a lot, but because somehow maybe the harmonious environment is very promoted in the Asian society, that if we that we don't always want to speak up or speak against anybody. So that is why we tend to present it to be more agreeing or even like less intelligent. And I think what need to be done more is really like perhaps if Westerners or Europeans try harder to ask more questions, like more of why, than try to make sense of it. Just be quiet and listen and try to observe and understand. And I think that's what Lucas is doing a lot, and that's what I like about this project.
Thank you so much. I would like to listen even more, but we're going to do that downstairs at the bar or at the terrace. I would like to thank you for your very honest stories and sharing your experiences with us. Give them a warm applause, our panel. Thank you so much. And then we have, and maybe you can just sit here because we have like a sort of surprise for Lucas already, because we want to close this session, and everybody can join with the some say typical Asian phenomenon. Maybe Sophie, we can go to the screen. Because you already mentioned it, Lucas, that you like to sing karaoke.
No, I don't.
No, you said that you were singing karaoke. So we selected one song, and it is actually a song from Elvis Presley. Everybody can join also. We're gonna try to.
I'm a terrible singer.
We're gonna try. Lucas, just give him a warm applause, Lucas de Man. We're gonna always on my mind. You know the song. This is pretty. This is pretty easy.
Ik kan.
Okay. Quite as good as I should have.
Ja, jij kan zingen.
A little bit sing, but
Oké, ga maar.
Maybe I didn't love you as I could have. Ja, jij moet de tweede.
Ik doe mee met het refrein.
Je moet met the things I should have said and done.
Wow.
I just never took the time. You were always on my mind. Iedereen mag meezingen hoor.
Oh my god.
You were always on my mind.
So we did karaoke in Asia. We had to do karaoke for the film, and because I don't like to sing with Hun Shin because it's very important. I did this tour with Hun Shin. So she's like these people. She's from Korea but lives in Europe. So she's also in between places. And together we went to Asia. She loves karaoke. She went singing crazy, and I was like the Western guy just standing there and doing like.
Girl, I'm so sorry.
Girl, I'm so sorry. And she went crazy and was like blind and
you were always on my mind.
Very good.
You were always on my mind.
Woo! Woo!
Ja, goed jongens, we gaan het niet helemaal uitzingen. Maar we willen jullie wel van harte bedanken. Thank you so much for coming. Just follow Lucas de Man en Stichting Nieuwe Helden. New Heroes, and this project Hello Asia at Pakhuis de Zwijger. We would like to welcome you every day of the year, but we see you downstairs and tomorrow. In September, Lucas is coming for all his projects, and New Heroes. Just give him and all the other speakers just one more applause. Thank you so much for coming. See you next time. Lucas de Man. Woo!
You were always on my mind.